Well, hi, how are you doing, William Patrick Corgan? Hi, Billy, what's happening? I thought about having a conversation with you because I know that Christmas is like your all-time favorite holiday, and decorating in your house is an event. And it's also just a time of year that's really special. And this time of year is hard for a lot of people. And I wanted to give some people just some nuggets of hope, knowing that, not every Christmas was fantastic for you, Billy Corgan, as you've very openly spoken about and written about and mused about and performed about. But there's something so magical about what could be in this time of year of reflecting and family. And now that you're a dad, I just wanted to peel back the curtain a little bit and first ask, how many trees this year? 5? You got 5?
Yeah, we have 5 trees this year.
5.
Two natural and 3 old school fake.
Oh, nice. And you still have like the bubbly old lights, like the real old school lights.
Jen, it gets so deep here. We have different lights.
Okay, go.
A few years ago, my project was to, you can get, if everyone thinks of the kind of the outdoor Christmas lights, the bigger bulbs,
sure.
We call them C9s for those keeping score. I realized, because of course you can still buy C9 bulbs, but they don't look like the ones I remember when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. So in doing some research, I found out that the bulbs that you and I would have grown up on were ceramic, and they were painted inside.
Okay.
And so those you have to kind of dig on eBay to get. You can still get them, like kind of new old stock. Mm-hmm. So like a few years ago, I did the vintage Christmas bulb look.
Yeah.
Here. The problem is that those tend to burn a lot hotter.
I was going to say, aren't they a fire hazard? And you're a parent.
Technically speaking, they are a fire hazard, but they were always a fire hazard.
Okay.
I have learned though that the modern strings, don't quote me on this, I'm not a engineer, but right. As far as my understanding, the modern strings don't burn as hot as the old strings did. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So even though I use the old bulbs, they don't burn as bright as they did when we were kids, so they were even more of a fire hazard.
I know. I mean, hello, they had candles in trees. Talk about fire hazard.
Well, they worked there to the ceramic bulbs, which were less of a fire hazard. Okay. So this year's project was, I got into, if anybody remembers, they look like snowballs.
Oh, yeah.
Colored snowballs. I think they stopped making them around the 70s.
So where'd you find them?
We have one tree this year that are decorated all with the vintage snowballs.
Are you going to post some pictures on Instagram so that we can see?
I might. I go back and forth on my privacy, and I really struggle with that.
Right.
I realize the whole world is literally inviting everybody into their armpit, but sorry, that was a bit too graphic even for me.
It's okay, but you're right. We're popping zits on Instagram. I get it.
Yeah. So point being is I struggle with that, but I certainly like sharing Christmas cheer with people.
So favorite song as a kid that kind of, if you hear now, takes you back to a good memory as a kid?
I think Silver Bells for me, because I sang it in choir.
Nice.
And I have a specific memory of singing Silver Bells at one of those kind of middle school performances they make parents sit through.
Oh, really? And that was a memory that was a good one?
Oh, it just sounded good, Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's something about a choir and live, of course, live music.
Of course.
We can listen to music all we want on digital sources, but there's something about hearing somebody sing it live. Right. So I just remember that it really sealed the song for me at that time. So that's probably like a personal fave.
And then as far as, because we sang Christmas Dream, and that was so much fun. You love to find the old, not always overplayed, not always the standard kind of songs. Is there an old school song that's not played on the radio that's in your loop right now, maybe in your jukebox in the kitchen?
I believe I have a record that's called Christmas Island that I think the Andrews sisters did, possibly even with Bing Crosby, although there were a lot of times where they recorded with and without him the same song, so it's a little confusing. Wow. Christmas Island to me is one of those weird, it's basically somebody singing, I wish I was an island that was Christmas all the time, but that makes no sense because I live in Chicago, so it makes me think of tropical isle, and why would you want Christmas on a tropical isle?
Right.
And having had some Christmases in warm weather, it is a bit bizarre. I had one Christmas once in Australia, and it was like 95 out. And that's really hard to get if you grew up in the Midwest like we did, it's really hard to get the Christmas spirit going.
It's interesting. I was doing some research on actually the date. And of course, we have no proof that December 25th is Jesus's birthday. It was just kind of a date that a couple hundred years after they think he was around that they chose in connection with the pagan holidays and trying to keep that time of year at this, winter solstice on the 21st. But there are some historians that believe he was born March 25th. Some think it was October because of the flock of the sheep. You don't tend to your sheep outside in the dead of winter. That's something that historically, but if you tell that to the world, it would just blow up Christmas. It was just like, they can't wrap their head around it. So the historians are like, it's not so much about the date, but really there's a lot of arrows that point to it's probably not December 25th. So just knowing that, it's all about the Christmas spirit, because that date might not be so accurate,
It's never bothered me.
Right, go ahead.
I'm named William Patrick after St. Patrick. I was born on St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
If you look up the history of St. Patrick's Day, they couldn't decide whether he was born on the 8th or the 9th, and people kept fighting about it, so they just added the dates together.
May the 17th. There you go.
Okay, so my BS saint holiday birthday is false too, so it's never bothered me. I'm cool.
Exactly. Just pick a lane and stick with it. As far as movies go for the holidays, are you a old school like the Grinch, or maybe Miracle on 34th Street, old school black and white, or is there It's a Wonderful Life hands down for you?
It kind of depends on my mood. I'm kind of in the mood to watch the Grinch tonight because I'm feeling a bit grumpy. The original Grinch, although I do like the movie version. I thought it was fun. Yeah. But I It's a Wonderful Life is always a go-to for me. Miracle on 34th Street is pretty solid. Not a great movie, but certainly kind of works. I think it worked more as a kid. Right. It's weird. It's like my attachment to Miracle on 34th Street is what I remember when I was a kid. So when I watch it, it's like I re-experience what I remember as a kid, but as an adult, the movie's kind of flat. Right. Even the ending, they did this weird ambiguous thing. Like, did he really get them the house? I'm sorry to give away the ending for anyone. Right. No kidding. Spoiler alert, but that's good. Cane, but maybe it's not his cane. They had to do some sort of weird ambiguous thing at the end. The cane on the door, right? Okay. Yeah. So, part of the whole thing with Miracle on 34th Street is they're sort of trying to deal with cynicism, right? And when should kids know? And the mom in the thing, she doesn't think the kid should be told, and that to me it's very cynical, very 50s post-war, like, let's just get on with it. And I'm a big believer that Christmas should go on as long as possible for kids. Right. When do you remember the moment when it stopped going on for you? Well, this gets kind of personal because actually I probably can't tell the story here, but let's just say that the day I found out there was no Santa Claus was also the day I found out that little girls were different than little boys, and I'll just leave it right there. Wow. So I had a double whammy. A double whammy. And how old were you? I learned a lot in one day. Okay. How old? I write about it in my book, so we'll save it for my book. But. Oh yeah, let's talk about that book. That's been a long time journey because you've been 10 years going. It's hard to dig up and unearth and retell and relive. But for you, how old were you when you had that aha of both the Santa Claus and the men and women, girls and boys? Were you what, 7, 8? 8, I think. About 8. Okay, so as you've talked very openly about not having, Ozzie and Harriet for parents. What were the traditions for you as a kid? I mean, were there any? Did you open presents Christmas Eve? Was it Christmas morning? Was it sometimes both? Was Dad around? I mean, what was that like? Sure. Well, I grew up with nobody believed in the Christmas Eve present opening thing. To me, that's heresy. Same. Okay. Yeah. I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm totally against the Christmas Eve present opening. Yeah. We all had to wait till Christmas Day. Okay. I grew up with 3 different families, 2 blood families and a step family. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't unusual that I had 3 Christmases in basically a kind of a 24 to 48 hour window. Right. And all 3 families celebrated Christmas on Christmas. They would, of course, make amendments for us depending on who was visiting, where and when. Mm-hmm. But by and large, everybody believed in like Christmas Day, eat midday, eat a big meal midday, open the presents as soon as you get up, that kind of thing. So I guess it's about as typical a Christmas as you could have. That was my Christmas. And was there one particular where you actually got what you wanted, that you totally remember? It was like, oh my God. Oh yeah, no, we were lucky in that our step grandparents were, I guess you would call them wealthy. I mean, they were probably just upper middle class wealthy. They both had really good jobs. Right. And my step grandmother worked actually at Bally Stern, if you remember pinball maker.
Oh my gosh, sure.
So it was cool because like when the Kiss pinball machine came out, she gave me like the Kiss pinball poster. I had stuff like that, so it was cool. And then our step grandfather worked for a publishing company. The people actually made the books, and they were involved with all the Dungeons and Dragons books. So we used to get all those books, but they were also very generous, and so they would buy us, like they were always gave us like the best presents of everybody.
Nice.
And because of 3 families, I didn't necessarily lack for presents.
I was going to say, but did you have to hop in the car like every 3 hours? Because that was mine. It's like they had to split up moms and dads, and they both.
Yeah, and then this one didn't want to see this one, so they would kind of drop you off at the curb, or like, you know, my mother would go to her mother's house for 5 minutes, but wouldn't stay. And of course, her mother would get depressed. And it was always this thing.
Right.
And then years later, then it was. Well, then when there was issues between my mother and her mother, then it was 4 Christmases.
And then would it go till like the 26th, 27th? Like we used to.
No, everybody was kind of on their best behavior about getting us moved around, which is kind of shocking in hindsight.
Okay, so now as a parent, do your kids write a list to Santa? Do they write letters to Santa? I mean, Augustus is only 4, and obviously.
No, Augustus is actually 5 now, but he seems reluctant to want to write a letter to Santa. Mm-hmm. I think he's having a hard time committing. Santa kind of deal with it. He doesn't like. I think he's having a hard because in his mind he wants all the presents. Mm-hmm. So asking Santa for anything specific is kind of limiting.
Right. Okay. Smart kid. But he just communicates to you all the things that he's thinking about.
Oh, right? He wants everything. He wants everything.
And wants presents every day. We were talking about that since the birthday. It's just like a nonstop barrage of presents.
Oh, I mean, yesterday at Zuzu's, Caitlin. Oh. Our mutual friend Caitlin Foisey was there, and Caitlin and Augustus always have had this special connection. Mm-hmm. So as soon as Augustus sees Caitlin, he goes, "Do you have a present for me?"
Exactly, that's what he said to me too.
Right to it.
Right, you got a present for me.
he is Scorpio. He's going to go right for it every time. So
good for him.
We'll just wait for puberty to kick in on the request list. But yeah. So yeah. I mean, look, we're blessed in that our kids are spoiled, you know.
Right.
They have everything that any kid could ever want. So it is actually, so they're so spoiled. It's like kind of like, well, what do we get them? Like,
right. What's different? Maybe an experience when we can start traveling again, but they're not going to understand that hey guys, in 6 months.
Yeah, right? and to touch on the COVID thing, I think a lot of parents are experiencing this right now. It's like you almost kind of want to overspoil your kids because they're not able to have a normal life.
Right.
At least as us, we can make critical decisions about risk and reward. But with kids, it's so hard. They can't see their friends. Mm-hmm. They're not getting play dates. They're not going to playgrounds. That's really tough on them. And it's really going to be interesting to see the effect on this long term. Are we going to look back in 10 years and go, man, we messed up a whole generation by like literally having a moat somewhere in their developmental years where they just literally were isolated in this strange way, you know?
Right. Or is it going to also bring so many families, well, the good and the bad, right? Like I know for me, if I were going into work every day, somebody else would be cooking him dinner. Somebody, you know, he would be cooking himself lunch. You know, I feel, and you have had this too, where you get so much quality time. I mean, at a nauseum effect, right? With the kids to the point though, where people tempers are, you know, they're short, right? Because there's no space to kind of just go and do your own thing. But at the same time, I think your kids are going to have these wonderful memories of, you know, game night with mom and dad and watching, you know, dad go right and then go sing. And then we're all having dinner together. I mean, you're not traveling the way you used to. So, I mean, if you rewind the clock back to when you were 5, very different scenario, very different landscape. So isn't that kind of a good thing in a little bit of a way?
Yeah, no, I can't complain. I mean, actually, it's funny you mentioned, we just played Kitty Scrabble with the kids.
Yes.
It was my daughter, 2 years old, who requested it. So.
See, and that's good. They're remembering that and they'll never forget that. Like I have memories at that age, 2, 3, 4, and 5, where we would just sit around in the living room and my grandmother and her sisters would just sing and somebody would just play the piano. And that was it. There was no GameStop. There were, you know, no PlayStations. There was no iPhones, iPads, movies even. It was just enjoying each other. So, you know, you get these moments where you get to enjoy your kids and your family. And oh my gosh, great song with Chloe. So that, of course, brings up the question, when are you going to do your Christmas album? As your fans have been waiting for a long time.
Yeah, I actually started the Christmas album a couple years ago. Probably Christmas, right?
Yeah.
I think you're around when I started doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of did it quick, and I wasn't satisfied with the results, so I junked it all. But I had written some songs, and I had found some cool obscure songs, and picked a couple classics that I liked. I hope we get around to it sometime. But yeah, at the moment, it's completely stalled.
Okay. Well, if there's anybody that you could do a Christmas duet with, who would it be? Like alive or dead? I mean, alive. Yeah, either one. Like if you could bring somebody back and do a duet with them, like everybody did with Nat King Cole, who would you do?
Oh, I don't know. Gene Autry.
Nice. Very nice. Okay, now alive.
Gene Autry's not alive?
Yeah, yeah. No kidding. I'm okay. Yeah, now young.
I don't know.
No?
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's been awesome just watching your journey, knowing you for the years that I've known you and seeing where you are right now, seemingly very, very busy. But even if you're grumpy tonight because bah humbug, it happens, I know that people find incredible peace through the vibration of your music. And that has got to, as you have spoken about, it resonates, makes a difference. You speaking out about all the things you're speaking out with bullying and all of that gives a voice to the voiceless. And so on this holiday, I hope you can sit in that and know that it's those little gestures that make such a much bigger impact than 30,000 people in a stadium, you know, because it can reach 30 million. And now in this age, there is a benefit to this digital outreach, you know?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think, though, that we're reaching a point where we're going to have to start seeing some kind of breakaway systems. You know, without naming names, we're all used to a certain set of social media systems. And even if somebody was to come up with a different version of it, well, it's basically kind of the same thing, right? You know, it's like right now we have Twitter, and then the competitive site is Parler, for example.
Sure.
I personally am not on Twitter anymore, although I think somebody runs my account there. But point I'm trying to make is, I think we're quickly coming on the age where, in order to commune properly, to have conversations like this with greater reach and greater sensitivity, I think we're going to need to see some breakaway systems. You know, it's going to have to be a little bit more complicated than, like, you know, there's ESPN and there's the spiritual channel. There needs to be almost like more heartfelt, spiritually rooted social media systems where people can communicate and share information in a more open system. You know, I'll use a poor analogy, but at different times in my life, I've lived in New York, and I would always have these amazingly rude encounters. I mean, Chicago's rude enough, but New York is like a totally another level. I'd say the rudest cities I've ever been in order are probably New York, London, Philadelphia, and Chicago are probably the.
Yeah.
So, you know, like, so again, if you grow up with level 4, level 3, 2, and 1 are always a bit of a shock.
Sure.
But the point I'm trying to make in saying this is, whenever I would complain to people about my experiences in a city like New York, which I do love, people being rude, like literally grandma shoving me out of the way in line. I mean, stuff I can't even psychologically fathom. People would always say, well, that's New York, you know what I mean? And I think we after 20, 25 years of social media systems, we kind of reached this weird sanguine, well, that's just kind of the way it is. It's like, you know, don't feed the trolls. And I think we need to start setting up systems that don't have trolls. You know what I mean? Like, they don't have negative things, where people can really openly share and feel not privacy, but some sense of protection or decorum, whether it's moderated or curated or something. Like, you know, let's say you were on the spiritual network and there were 50,000 people and literally everybody was vetted. And if you behave badly, you get kicked off and you can't come back.
Right.
I think we need to start setting up these systems to start having these deeper discussions about living and maintaining, because, and the reason I went off on this mini rant was, you know, I agree with you to the extent that, you know, I know consciously, even subconsciously, that I've done work that has helped people. I've said things that has helped people. People tell me that I've helped them. But it does feel, I would say, there at some point you feel this immense sense of fatigue. You know, you're always kind of fighting against the heretics. You and of course we have plenty of spiritual examples of what it means to stand up against the mob or the crowd or whatever.
Right. But
I just think what I'm just saying is at some point it's almost impossible. It's you can continue to navigate a maze, but the maze is satanic,
Well, it's like whatever happened to just basic grace and decorum? Like when you would go to a show in the theater, you're not supposed to stand up and take a piss right in the aisle. I mean, and that's kind of what everybody feels it's safe to do online. It's like they're just going to whip it out and pee all over somebody's wall or all over someone's comments like they can. But there's no, like you say, there's no monitoring, like a sense of respect. You don't go into a church in a half shirt. That's why they put up rules going to the Vatican. You can't wear, you have to have your shoulders covered.
But you and I are saying the same things from different directions. This is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
We need to be able to establish, let's call it a different digital decorum.
Correct.
That doesn't involve censorship. It just involves responsibility.
Correct.
And what I'm trying to say is the internet, the access to the world, whether I give people access or not, it does afford a level of communication. It does afford people being able to tell me their stories.
Right.
It does afford me a greater sensitivity to who's listening and why they're listening. Mm-hmm. But in order to, and I'm not complaining, I'm speaking just as myself.
Yeah.
In order to navigate that, I have to navigate a whole ton of white noise that I just don't want to deal with. Yeah. And so I'm given a binary choice that I don't like, which is be vulnerable and communicate, or don't communicate at all and live in a kind of a white tower oblivion,
mm-hmm.
To the world around you. I don't want to be disconnected from the world. I want to write about the world. I want to participate in the world. I want to be part of the conversation.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean I want to live in this perfect utopia.
No.
And so to bring the discussion full circle, I mean, that's the beautiful thing about Christmas. It is a time to atone. It is a time to reflect. It is a time to forgive. And it's also a time to sort of, reconnect to your values. And we've had a really, really crazy year. We've been asked to put things on our faces, whether we want to or not. And people want to run and point at science. Well, tell me where science isn't being abused. Tell me where politics isn't being abused. Tell me where social sciences aren't being abused. We live in a world now where, and by the way, before somebody wants to blow up my DMs, if you remember the World Health Organization, I believe in March, including members of Congress, were saying, don't wear masks.
They were. I interviewed those doctors when I was doing my radio show.
Don't wear masks.
Yeah.
So now here we are, whatever, 6-7 months later. Now everybody's got to wear a mask. Mm-hmm. Mothers are getting kicked off planes because their 2-year-olds won't wear a mask.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're like into this other thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to be political about it. What I'm trying to say is it's hard to know who to trust, who to believe, who to listen to, where to find light in the thing. And that's where tradition can come in.
Yes.
And even if sometimes, like my old teacher, Sonia Choquette, used to say, fake it till you make it,
Right.
Sometimes I've had some pretty rough Christmases, and sometimes Christmas is about faking it. It's literally about sitting down and crying over your faux turkey dinner. Like, at least commit to the process, commit to the moment, mm-hmm. whether you believe in Jesus's birth, whether you believe he was born or not born or born on that day, it's irrelevant. Commit to the moment, and magical things can happen. That's sort of, that's the whole point of Miracle on 34th Street. It's like, just believe in it. Like it won't kill you to believe in Santa,
Wow. And did you have a Christmas Eve go to church tradition when you were growing up? Did you go and sing Silent Night at midnight and do that whole thing? Or?
I was raised Roman Catholic, and so we did some of that. But then I don't know, at some point it seemed not to be as important, or I don't know, right. Or it became optional, or I didn't have to go. But I do remember going.
Yeah.
I remember liking it, but I have my issues with the church. I don't want to have to get into that here.
Right. Yeah. No, we started off Lutheran with my mom and my dad when they were married, and then wife number 2 was Episcopalian, so we went Episcopalian, and then by the third wife we were just Easter and Christmas Eve at a congregational church where everybody just kind of sang and hung out. And I just feel like the one memory of that Christmas Eve midnight mass, right? You go at 11 and it ends at midnight, and just that coming together, no matter how crappy your week was, no matter how bad your year was. I do remember looking forward to that. And then when my parents stopped doing it, I still continued that tradition with some friends, and we continued that. And I want to try to bring that back with my son. He's now 14, but we can't even go anywhere. So it's like, all right, now we're going to start a tradition with us. So what are your family traditions that you've started, whether it's around a meal or I know you got presents and all that stuff and dinner with friends, but is there a night before Christmas? Do you read it to the kids? Is that something you do?
No, I think our whole thing is just a big whip up on decorating and getting in the mood.
Cool.
Basically kind of signaling to ourselves and to our children that this is a really important time. It's worth the effort.
Yeah.
Like I've been collecting Christmas stuff for 20 years. So I have like goofy Christmas vintage collection. So
antique
Santa. I have enough 15 trees. I mean, it's not even funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to put up the 5 trees, it's like 40 hours of work, you know?
And how do you choose? Is there a favorite ornament right now that you saw today? Because everyone.
No, so you're getting in my system here. I rotate. I try not to use the same boxes year after year.
Okay.
And so when we put the stuff away, we write, you know, it'll be 2020 main tree.
Sure.
So when I get the boxes the next year, I know, okay, this box is off this year.
Put it on the bench.
But it's mostly vintage ornaments.
Yeah.
Probably 75 to 80% vintage ornaments that I've collected through the years.
Yeah. Anybody could do right by you if they find an antique Santa. That's always my big quest, is to find in an antique store. Back when we could go in them, was finding
the
vintage.
But I got, like, if anyone's ever been in one of these Christmas stores that's open all year, you ever been in one of those?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know how. First of all, I don't know how they do it. You know what I mean? Like, I would go insane. Mm-hmm. I could do 30 days of Christmas. I can't do 365. No. But like I'll open some boxes because this is like more my random years. Mm-hmm. Those random years in between there.
Yeah.
I find like it'll be like a dentist. Like, why do I have a dentist ornament?
And you don't remember where or what?
No. I have like, you know, like animals are always cool. It's like, oh, it's a woodchuck. Oh, it's a sea lion. But like why do I have I have an auto mechanic?
Well, you know what? What's your star? Is it an angel? Is it a star? And all of them, are they different?
We have this thing. We have multiple.
Yeah.
Multiples.
Okay. Well, right now this is the favorite. Although her cord is it's an angel. You kind of can't see her. There.
Yeah, it's a little blown out from the light. But.
Yeah, but she's just like, so I have a few different angels and we would put them on the tree at different times. And I was decorating it solo this year because a 14-year-old has no interest in. I thought about forcing him to do it with me. And then I just thought, no, then it's going to be one of those memories where he's like, my mom made me blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I'm not, since we're friends, I'm going to argue with you. You should make him.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make him help me with Christmas dinner. And I'm going to, I mean, he's really a good kid, but he was in the middle of some social thing with his friends where they were Zooming about something super important. And since he can't see them in person, I didn't want to interrupt that. It's not like he was just doing the regular video game, whatever. But right. That's how they meet now, is like they make these plans to kind of all do FaceTime together. I mean, I just don't even know what we're in for 10 years from now, how this is going to shape them.
This is why you need to make him do the ornaments with you.
Yeah. Well, believe me, he'll be taking it down with me. There's no he'll be taking it down for me. I'll be putting them away for him. Is there any ornament on any of your trees that were from your family growing up, like your dad? I have a couple from my dad era here. There's some interesting ones. In 1984, one on the tree. Do you have any from your parents or grandparents?
Actually, you reminded me. I forgot. We do have a little tradition where we try it every year. We get an ornament for the year that says the year.
Oh,
so
okay.
You actually remind me. I don't have a 2020. Not that I would want to remember this year, but I don't have an ornament yet.
Okay. Good.
What was the question? Sorry, I got distracted by my other thought.
No, just your any ornament.
Oh yeah, when my mother passed away, she made sure to leave me her stuff.
Oh, so there's a marquetry.
It sort of blended in the general population of the ornaments, which is cool. So I actually found a couple ornaments from my mother the other day, and I showed them to my son, and he just, he doesn't really understand because, she doesn't exist in his mind yet.
Right.
I try to explain to him that I have a mommy.
Mm-hmm.
Show him her picture. It doesn't land. He doesn't connect with it.
Wow.
Because to him, it's like, how can you talk about somebody that's not here?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And if you try to go, well, she's in heaven. Well, where's heaven?
right.
Why can't I? That kind of thing.
Send him to me. I'll talk to him.
Thanks. So he hasn't quite figured that out yet, like why that's important yet.
Right. Well, there's time. He's only 5. There's only so much we can crack open in 2020 right now. So as you move forward in your week of getting ready, are you going to at all slow down on your workload, or are you just going to be in family mode, or are you still going to do a little of each?
I usually every year I have a kind of cutoff date.
Okay.
So
What's your
this is my last week, and then I hit my cutoff date.
Okay.
And I generally try to take the time off around Christmas and some time off after to not work for a change.
Well, Madame Zuzu's online store is open to everybody who's watching this, and that's a great, great gift idea. I had some stimulus hot. Your tea is one of my favorites.
I heard our biggest sellers right now are our chai teas, and we have chocolate pu'er. Pu'er being a fermented tea with chocolate. It is so good. Oh, it's like to die for.
All right, what are your hours this week? You guys are open this week, right?
I think our hours on weekdays are 10 to 5 now.
Good deal.
And we've kind of tightened up our hours a little bit because with no indoor dining.
Yeah.
You know, but the cycles of how people coming in are a little bit different.
Excellent.
But
are you going to DJ on Christmas Eve from Zuzu's? Do a live stream?
That's funny. I forgot to think of that. But yeah, I've talked about it a little bit. I don't really have a DJ set up, so it'd be literally something as awkward as me just spinning 45s and talking in between the records. You know what I mean?
Love that. I think your listeners and your fans and your Zuzu's crowd would just eat that up.
Yeah, but see, you're a professional broadcaster, so you know time is money on that stuff. So the awkward 30 seconds between records seems like it'd be like death.
It would be perfect vintage. There's no hitting the post when you're doing a Christmas Eve at the tea house. I mean, come on. This is all about you just being you and picking your songs and explaining them. I remember at the old Zuzu's a couple years ago, you were doing that. You were playing some of the oldest, best, oh my gosh, the Liza Minnelli records you were playing, Judy Garland. I mean, it was just, you were pulling out the catalog of the best old vintage, wonderful. And then, okay, let's think new as far as like rock. I mean, you had it all. So do it. It'd be so much fun. We would watch. I would listen.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, I'll keep putting in my vote.
There might be a. I would love to do it more like a modern way, like a Spotify playlist, and everybody like 8 o'clock exactly. Everybody hits go, and then maybe there's some way to
interact, figure it out.
But the problem is like see, this is where I'm so tech dumb. It's like I wish there was a way like I could talk while we were listening, but
hit the song.
But then most people only have one device. It's complicated.
All right, we'll have to brainstorm on that because that would be super cool.
It's amazing to me that someone who's made his life on technical things this so technically inept.
Because you have synthesizers in your office from like the 60s and 70s.
Yeah, but that's different. That's just press the button. But like my brother and my father, they're the type of people that can take a radio or a car apart and put it back together. Like I didn't get that gene.
Yeah. Well,
there's some Christmas shame for you.
Okay.
I can't build anything.
Christmas shame. That's okay.
Hence the overcompensation with the 5 trees.
5 trees. Oh, and I forgot to ask: colored lights or white lights or both?
I'm against white light completely.
Okay.
As I talked about before, I'm a big believer in vintage style lights. I wouldn't recommend old lights if you don't want to take those chances. It definitely is risky.
Right.
But yeah, you could buy vintage style lights. There's plenty of those.
And what do you want for Christmas?
I've reached this point where I really don't want anything for Christmas. It's kind of funny. Maybe that's the thing of having kids, like just being with my kids and everybody being happy. I really don't want for anything.
That's good.
I mean, if I was being honest, I would say there's a camera that I want that costs $5,000, but I wouldn't dare ask anyone for it. So.
Okay. Well, the beauty of being where you are in your life and career is you can buy your own Christmas present for yourself. But
I've done that too. But there were years where I bought those presents for myself because there was nobody else to buy presents for.
But now you got plenty. Your cup runneth over, my friend. Thank you for all that you do. People should be following you on Instagram. William P. Corgan. He's very active, very interactive at the moment on Instagram, and it's a great journey to follow those stories. Don't bother with Twitter at the moment, but definitely go on MadameZuzus.com and get your shopping needs taken care of. If you don't live in the Chicagoland area, of course, if you do, go there between 10 and 5. Get your tea. I can't wait to try. What's that chocolate one called again?
Chocolate pu'er.
Okay, chocolate pu'er. Excellent.
Pu'er with a P. Pu'er.
Got it. Pu'er. Thank you. Chocolate pu'er. Thank you. It's like French.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to everyone.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you. And of course, get all of William's music and his latest albums. Get all that, smashingpumpkins.com, yada, yada, yada. There's a sales pitch. Adore you, Billy. Thank you.
Always a pro, Jen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.